My name is Joanna Puno Hester. I am the Deputy Executive Director for the United Domestic Workers AFSCME Local 3930. I am also a commissioner of CAPIAA, a most recent one. I wanted to just mention that my union represents home care providers and family child care providers who are also micro business owners. Before I introduce our panel, I want to just mention that a couple of days ago, our API community, NHPI community, lost a giant named Professor Kent Wong. If you know him, he has founded the UC Systems labor centers and has been a strong advocate of worker rights. Secondarily, a previous commissioner, Louisa Blue, also passed this year, and I wanted to take this opportunity to mention them because we stand on their shoulders, in fact. I am honored to introduce the last panel of the day, which has been a wonderful conversation and connection with each other. The final panel is about how California prioritizes its small businesses, its impact, and how we ensure AAPI small businesses continue to thrive. We've assembled a powerhouse panel to guide this conversation. Our very own Chair Jason Paguio is going to be moderating this panel, and he is also the president and CEO of the Asian Business Association of San Diego, a champion for small business growth and NHPI representation statewide. Second, our second panelist is Chris Kate, president and CEO of the San Diego Regional Chamber of Commerce, and a former city council member here in San Diego who has been a long voice for small business reform and economic development. I'm wondering if our panelists should start walking towards, I think I mentioned Paguio and then Chris. Hi, Chris. Hi. Our next panelist is Shakil Sayed. Yes, I like that. Executive Director of the South Asian Network, a civil rights leader and advocate who partners with immigrant and underserved communities to ensure they have the resources and networks they need to thrive. Welcome, Sayed. Shakil. And California State Assembly member Jessica Calosa, representing California's 52nd District, a dedicated public servant advancing policies that strengthen equity, immigrant rights, and opportunities for small business owners across our state. What a better way to close today with the conversation about the business and anchor our communities, power our local economies, and keep California growing. Please join me in welcoming our distinguished guest.
Thank you, Commissioner Hester. It's great to have so many local faces here as part of the commission. And this is a very familiar group for me, so this is should be easy. We'll see. Maybe we'll get some hardball questions here, like Padres or Dodgers, maybe. Who provides more economic impact to the region? Anyway, so we'll start maybe in terms of like advocacy. I know we'll start with the former council member here. And now CEO of the San Diego Regional Chamber of Commerce. For those of you that don't know, Chris is not only was he a small business owner, but prior to being elected, but in his role, he ended up becoming as CEO of the San Diego Chamber, was able to, I think, provide perspective and do a lot of different things on the council that was sort of unconventional at the time, that we didn't really see as like could be. How do we provide technical assistance services to our small businesses through the government? So I think we're going to have a really great conversation here in terms of local, state, and then also community and the kinds of resources that we can provide that are very culturally responsive and tailored to making sure every community is accounted for here. So I don't know if I call you honorable or just CEO, Chris. I don't know. Yeah, Chris. Okay, Chris. I think it was 40 or 50 years, I don't know, 40 something years from the time City of San Diego has, Tom Hom was a former city assembly member, was elected here and was somebody who was the first person of color and elected to San Diego City Council and eventually moved on to the State Assembly. And he was somebody who was very good at supporting small businesses. But it was decades later that we had somebody elected that represented our community, and Chris was that person who stepped up into that role. So into that and having the small business lens was really important for us. So to see him in an organization that is over 150 years old, Chris looks great, but over 150 years old, being able to have something like that in that role, Asian no raisin, but anyway, so having him in that role, I think, and providing that lens from a local elected official is very helpful. So being able to see, I think, for how you action policy, we saw throughout the pandemic. I know that you did a lot of work in terms of being able to work with our small business development centers, which is funded by the Small Business Administration federally, as well as GoBiz through the state of California. What did you see, and how were you able to action and champion policies? What was it like on the ground to be able to do that and make a meaningful difference to those small businesses?
Well, thank you, and good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for having me be part of this. I think when we were going through the midst of the pandemic and seeing the impact in the communities I represented, Mira Mesa, Convoy, these are very predominantly AAPI communities, and seeing the small businesses struggle, and we're seeing the amount of money that was being distributed to local jurisdictions to support businesses. I think it was important for me to ensure that those communities who don't have the ability to advocate in city halls or whatnot, and have the funding to do advocacy work and whatnot, don't even speak the language, had a voice. And so it was a conversation that we were able to have with some colleagues of mine on the city council who also represented ethnic districts and small businesses who were not your traditional small business owners, and discuss with them about how we can ensure that the money that was being allocated for the technical support and technical assistance during really a very challenging time, we're going to them on the ground specifically. So it was something where I was able to bring together a coalition of colleagues and council members, elected officials, to ensure that when we were allocating COVID money, we actually had a direct percentage of dollars that were going to minority-owned businesses for that support. And so it was something that was very important to us, and ensuring that we were talking to also those folks who are on the ground, who have the ability to communicate, have the relationships, have the trust of these business owners. So partnering with what we call the Strategic Alliance, led by the Asian Business Association, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Black Chamber of Commerce as well, too, to ensure those business owners and members of those organizations were getting those dollars. So it's something I think is still important to this day, and making sure that these business owners have that support from local jurisdictions. And proud to say that I think that has continued on even throughout as you close the pandemic and moving forward to today.
Thank you, Chris. Shaquille, similarly, and with the South Asian Network, I know a lot of your role with the small business program you created, and being able to get things that, I mean, obviously we're in a position now federally where you see we had the ear of an administration and folks that really wanted to make sure that everybody was accounted for, that we were providing things in language, that we moved so far ahead, and now we're removing out those things. What does it look like in your network and what you're doing to make sure that every part of your community, our community, is able to get the resources they need? And how are you building that community connection, like as Chris mentioned, for those resources?
Yeah, thank you, Jason, and thank you so much for hanging out for the best session of the conference today. I happen to be sitting between two politicians. I don't quite know what it means, but I'll do my best. Thanks for asking that question. So South Asian Network is a 35-year-old direct service provider in greater LA area. In 2023, we started the small business support program. And we started this program because many of the small business owners and operators and entrepreneurs also were asking for resources that we didn't have. We didn't know about this program either, to be honest with you. We learned a great deal. We reached out to National Capacity, which is a national organization that provides support to AAPI communities, CBOs, to help us out with how do we go about and support small businesses. Now, sometimes small businesses also need some definition. $5 million, husband and wife team, mother and kids team, small business. So much spectrum, right? Wide spectrum. The folks that we serve and we work with are truly the micro small businesses, mom and pop shops, right? Who don't necessarily have the knowledge and wherewithal to go and apply for a conventional loan in a bank. They don't know what it requires to apply for a loan. They don't know what city and county resources are available. I did not know what the heck CDFI means until we started this program. If any of you operate CDFI, raise your hand. I want to talk to you after the program. So we started supporting these small businesses in this fashion. In the current context particularly, SBA does not have money, or SBA has so many restrictions to give money to small businesses. So we have taken a multi-pronged approach really to do a more holistic outreach and education to these small businesses. First is access to capital. This is the single most important ask from small businesses. So we work with a couple of CDFIs in greater LA area, and we have supported some small businesses already. It really moves me and touches me to see some of our clients who are victims and survivors of domestic violence, who we mentor, who we provide necessary training, and then we arranged a loan for them, and a couple of them own their own businesses today. There is nothing that warms my heart more than this, to support those who are underserved, to help them become financially empowered, find their agency, and then make a difference in the community. We also try to cultivate talent. Within the community, there are folks who have extraordinary talent. I, as a South Asian, and us as Asians in general, we love food, don't we? Right? Nobody goes hungry in our homes. Many of our clients are excellent cooks, but they just don't know how to utilize that skill to be able to become financially empowered and own a small business. So we have one particular client, and my small business staff manager is here. He could tell the story better than me. This lady who did not know how to speak English. This lady who is, quote unquote, undocumented. We helped her, and now she owns the first South Asian pop kitchen in downtown Los Angeles. So cultivating talent, workforce development, removing systemic and structural barriers from the system. So with the deepest respect to my two public servants, we need your help to be able to help those who are monolingual in the community, to provide resources in language that they can benefit from. And lastly, cross-sector collaboration between public and private that was discussed this morning, but also within private and private. And what I mean by that is within our communities, we have underutilized properties under churches, synagogues, mosques, temples that can host these small business owners and operators who work and conduct their business in midtown, downtown Los Angeles, but can't afford to live there. They commute from 50 miles, 60 miles away from the town because they cannot afford the rent, right? So how can we use these underutilized properties and spaces in our communities that can house these people on a temporary basis to be able to then conduct their businesses effectively? So these are some of the approaches that we have taken to help our small businesses in the South Asian community.
Thank you for that. I'm as you're all talking, I have like 5 million more questions, I think, surrounding that. But I think it's very circular here. looking at workforce housing or small business owners. Those of you that know in San Diego, 98% of all firms and that employ folks are small businesses. This was a report by the San Diego EDC, regional EDC. And of those firms, 60% of our workforce in the entire region are those small businesses, which is a significant amount. And a lot of them are small businesses, but they don't have maybe necessarily workforce housing or the cultural support to be able to do things in language, or whether it's the Department of Environmental Health to be in compliance. And I think all this ties into also what happens at the state. And I know those of you that know Assemblymember Caloza, I mean, I'm a huge fan of a lot of your work. And I think for you and your role being somebody who is from the Philippines, and I think being your story as an immigrant resonated so strongly to the point that you were, you could correct me if I'm wrong here, the most winning assembly member of the state in terms of like the votes, because people felt that you connected with them as an immigrant, even though Filipinos were not the majority of votes in your district. And I think that tells a much bigger story. And I think this happens a lot in our community, that regardless of your ethnic background or where you're at, people resonate with somebody who works really hard and is representative of a culture that, whatever that culture is, you are representing more than just one group of folks. And I think that was a really big thing for, I think, a lot of us. And so as we've seen a lot of the policies that have come forward and the discussions here in terms of how you support small businesses, I know in particular one bill, AB 265, which a lot of us here have been really engaged in terms of the devastating wildfires in LA, we were all asking, well, what can we do in terms of those small businesses? We're talking about larger employers. Usually when a devastating or catastrophic event happens, what happens to those small businesses? What happens to those in those communities, those either restaurants or the grocery stores or the places where we find community in? When you think of a bill like AB 265 or the policies you champion, where do you go from there, and how do you engage to make sure that we're all part of this? And how does the state government put themselves in a position to make sure that they are working with all of us to do the right thing and make sure that every community is accounted for?
Thank you so much, Jason. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Jessica Caloza, Assembly Member for the 52nd District, proud to represent East LA, Glendale, as well as Northeast LA. I represent some communities like Los Feliz, Echo Park, Silver Lake, Eagle Rock, and I'm not in this territory right now. I'm in Padres territory, but I also represent the Dodger Stadium. For those of you, okay. Usually I get booed by that sometimes, so thank you. But first and foremost, thank you so much to our chair, Jason, and to our panelists, Chris and Shaquille. What an honor to be here having this conversation, really talking about how can we help our small businesses in the AAPI community? Thank you as well to our Executive Director, Khadijah, as well as to our Governor, Gavin Newsom, for uplifting this work, and the Speaker for uplifting this work. And it's important for all of us just to take a moment to thank our leadership at the state, only because I came from Alabama. Literally got off a plane a few hours ago where we did a civil rights tour, and they are not so lucky as us in here in California. They have a governor and an attorney general that are incredibly punitive towards their communities. And so I just want to take a moment to acknowledge and to not take for granted that we are in California and that we have a lot of problems here, but we also have a lot of people coming up with solutions. And that's really why I ran for office, is to make sure that we take all these pieces that we heard about, the perspective of the nonprofits, the policymakers, the chambers, and how to really do we connect that to come up with thoughtful legislation so that we can take the things and the challenges that we hear and actually come up with real meaningful solutions to address these challenges. One of the ways in which I've really tried to do that, to stay connected, to answer your question, to our communities, whether it's the mom and pop shops or small or medium or even larger businesses, is really to go door to door and to listen to our entrepreneurs and our small business owners. So I actually very frequently go on what I like to call small business walks. And that's literally going door to door to talk to our neighbors to see what's going on. And I've done that all across my district. And a lot of the things that I heard about on the ground were how small businesses were just really under attack already from what happened with COVID. I know we forgot about that, but that was still something that is a global pandemic that our small businesses survived. Now they are living through the over enforcement of from immigration officials at the federal level in Los Angeles County. We also have the impacts of the Eaton and Palisades fires. And we also have just the housing crisis, the affordability crisis, the climate crisis, all those things that are kind of, in a pressure cooker that are small businesses are trying to navigate through. And so I think you can see almost every crisis at play when you go door to door and you talk to a small business owner. And so for me, one of the things that I did champion that you raised was Assembly Bill 265, which is the Small Business Recovery Act, which would create a $100 million fund upon appropriation for our small businesses for those impacted by disaster or other interruptions. This is currently on the governor's desk. So if you know Governor Newsom, today is also his birthday, by the way. I encourage you to help us have him sign this really important piece of legislation that responds to the needs of what we've all heard and that our small businesses really need help. And just to emphasize one last point before I turn it back over to our chair, small businesses employ half of our workforce in California. They employ half of our workforce. That's an insane amount of economic activity that they generate. And so our small businesses are not just a nice to have in California. They're a need to have. They're a deeply part of San Diego, of Los Angeles, of the state. And so for me, that's really why I'm here, to support the commission's work and to tell everyone here that if you have an idea to support our small businesses, I have an open door and open to hearing your thoughts and ideas. Jason.
Thank you, Assemblymember. You mentioned that $100 million fund, and just to be clear for others in the room, the fund is not solely just for LA. That fund helps any.
No, it's just for LA. No, I'm just kidding. That's a statewide fund.
But for the state of California, I think for us, it's something when a bill gets born, we look at it and we go, okay, well, the partners that are in it are a lot of the technical assistance providers, and we look at the state and how those funds get deployed and who supports them. I think having the thoughtfulness, not too long after the LA fires, there was another one in San Diego, and we were thinking, well, what happens to us? And Chris and I experienced this, in the early and mid 2000s, the devastating wildfires, and we go, okay, well, we didn't have the support, so we wished we had that, at least a mechanism for us to be in that position. We need thoughtful leaders like that to understand our communities, because we're the ones who are usually typically left behind. So thank you for your thoughtfulness there. Chris, going back to you and how those policies get enacted. For the chamber, now that you're in this role, how do you look at how the chamber as a very sort of like sweeping or broad organization that, it's a huge, you have like thousands of members. How do you, taking something from your work with the council to being a small business owner to working with groups like the Asian Business Association and others, how do you take a group as large as the chamber and put it in a position where you can help support others, especially in the climate that we're in today, for technical assistance or funding?
Yeah, so a little bit about the San Diego Regional Chamber. We are the largest local chamber on the West Coast. We have over 2,000 members. We represent over 80 different industries, and we have our members employ over 300,000 people, San Diegans. And so for us, it's really about building coalitions and partnerships. One of the things that, and I'm still relatively new to my role, I just started in June, but one of the things that we are looking at is how do we expand the network and opportunities to smaller local chambers throughout the region as well too. Not all the local chambers have the resources that we have in terms of doing various events or trainings, workshops, different programs that we can do that others may not be able to. So how we partner with them. We're also figuring out ways to expand our partnerships with our local SBDC. Literally just signed an MOU with our SBDC this week, actually. I'm losing track of my weeks. This week, actually, to partner with them more so we can figure out, offer those trainings to our members. But as well, too, is how do we partner with, again, I mentioned those folks who have the trust on the ground with these various ethnic chambers that we have in our region. We're fortunate to have these ethnic chambers who have great partnerships, relationships, and again, they may not have all the resources as well, too, that we have, but how can we align and partner with them, not to try to overtake them or take their members, but support them in what they want to do because they represent businesses in our region as well too. And through that, I think we're going to be able to find solutions. And one of the things, and these some members talked about it, is going to be housing. I want to commend the commission. The commission issued a report earlier this year about the state of AA and HPI businesses in California. I was fortunate enough to work on that a little bit when I was working with the ABA previous to my role here, but there's a lot of amazing data in that report that hopefully can be continued and have more longitudinal work on that. But one of the things they talked about is the cost of living and housing in San Diego or in the state. And in San Diego specifically, I like leaving this fact with folks is that right now in San Diego, 140,000 people drive into San Diego every single day for their jobs. That is a detriment to our small business owners, employers here, because one of the biggest challenges our employers have is finding talent. And if we don't have the housing in San Diego, they will go elsewhere. There are 40,000 trips on the I-15 corridor going to Riverside every single day. 40,000 trips. That's a huge number. And so if we don't address the housing issues that we have here in San Diego, that's a customer base, an employer base that our small businesses just do not have, which just does not support our economic growth in San Diego. So, and this is being replicated throughout the state. So I commend the Assembly member for understanding that and having that be a priority because it's not just a housing issue, it's also an economic growth issue for our businesses as well.
Thank you, Chris. You alluded to the study we did in partnership with the commission, and it sort of shocked me that we had not done this before in terms of understanding our community. And I think at the same time during the wildfires, we initiated a study as well to see how nonprofits and small businesses were affected, because a lot of the nonprofits also provide services to those small businesses to make sure that they could survive or be able to get assistance, and whether it was in language. And organizations obviously like what Shaquille runs are incredibly important. How do we make sure that we are, one, getting good data, but making sure we're accounting for those communities that are totally underserved or just completely missed. And I think the study was it was born from San Diego first, where we work with a bunch of different organizations, and Chris remembers this. We work with the SBDC and Booz Allen Hamilton to data scrape and give us all the business licenses. What are those organizations like? What are their next codes? What is their, where are they getting their loans from? What does it look like? What are their challenges? And I think you mentioned that the size of business, a small business definition is so different from so many different businesses. Are you micro business? Are you, what's the SBA's definition is so different than what might be local. I remember talking to Chris at the local level about, are we using the SBA's definition during the pandemic? Or are we using our own based on the region? And I think there are it's so nuanced, but the small businesses account for so much more than I think what is usually said in the news. But everybody identifies with what a small business actually accounts for. So Shaquille, for you and your work, with the South Asian Network, where do you see what the two, I guess, politicians on the stage around you can do to help support your work to make sure that the studies and the surveys and the things as this current administration looks to remove a lot of those things or redefine definitions, even with the SBA or whatever else it is, with your work, where do you see that they could actually help you, and how can California and the local level champion policies that will support those small businesses that actually need the work?
Lots of more money. I wanted to make sure that I lift up Assemblymember Caldoza today, because this AB 265, I literally made a note for myself to thank you for pushing that bill. And those of us who have iPhones, please tweet, do whatever, to Mr. Newsom to sign today. Today is the day, I believe, right? Yeah, and wish him a happy birthday too. Yeah, no, this is so important. This is the leadership we really need for small businesses. What was the question?
How can they help you? I mean, you're right. Money is a very big thing. You're
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
I'm never shy about that. Those of you that know that I ask, I go, it's more expensive to communicate to communities of color that need that resources, but we can't be shy in asking. We're so shy in asking. I mean, you just said it. We got to ask.
Yeah, well, that's what executive directors do. Khadija, you know very well. Right? Our job number one is to ask money, and job number two is also ask money. But no, I think what we really need is in addition to money, and certainly money is extremely important, but also to think of innovative ways via which public sector can facilitate and create space for private entities, including non-profit entities, to partner in a way that ultimately will support the common and the greater good on the street to the small businesses. I'll share one example. I also happen to serve on the board of a small non-profit organization in greater LA area by the name Clergy and Laity United for Economic Justice, CLU. Some of the members of CLU, which are churches, mosques, and synagogues and temples, they have created an ethical social fund to support small businesses. Very small amount, 50,000 or so. And they give these microloans. I wonder if the public sector could pitch in and say, hey, you raise 50K, we will give you 450,000 and make a $500,000 fund for small businesses, for example. Yes, indeed, our state is nearly bankrupt, but still we have a lot of money. Maybe misappropriated, not spent in the areas where it should be spent, especially for small businesses and underserved communities, to targeted investments in areas where there is a big need for these. One of the community that we serve in little Bangladesh, which is part of K-Town in downtown LA, 70% of the people who live in that area, their total household income is less than $50,000. So for them, even a $1,000 loan makes a world of difference than to the chamber members, $1 million is not enough, right? So something along those lines, I think we need to think creatively and innovative way between public sector and private sector to find ways, creative ways via which we actually can optimize the limited resources that we have to be able to actually help those who are in need on the streets.
I think you said it well. I plug to the commission. I think this the current appointees and the staff and building capacity is always what ends up helping us to be able to make the case. I think we look at the commission today, we look at who's on staff, and we think of our mission statement is to advocate for the political, economic, and social for our community. And economic wasn't really ever edified, I think, to the extent that is that today we have an economic policy summit, which is, I think, to the credit of the commissioners that are all supportive of this, that you bought in understanding our community. And I will say that, as many of you have heard, when we did the study together with the ABA Foundation and the commission, that our community accounts for over $200 billion of economic impact to the state of California. $200 billion. We are second to white and non-Hispanic businesses in the state of California. We're number two, we're around 1 million businesses. And it's significant. And so that becomes undeniable when you get into a lot of the things of race and whatever else it is, or we're trying to remove certain designations. At the end of the day, if you're a company, if you're an educational institution, or you're a local business, and our community is really, our businesses are the ones that drive the local economy. So 1/3 of all businesses in the nation, by the way, are AAPI-owned businesses. So keep that in mind when people talk to you about the power of our community. With that, I know that identity is an incredibly important thing, and I actually had the privilege of, and thank you, Assembly Member, for having the opportunity for you launch the California International Trade Select Committee, and I know that took some political will for you to get there and the support of the speaker and others to be able to make sure we had that. And in that, in the forum at least, or the meeting I was at, I know Chrissy had that opportunity as well, to be part of the first convening. It's not just significant for our community, but being able to see between Asia and California, the investments are. I'm learning so much being part of it, and it took actually the Adam with the LA tourism to talk about when you have like the historic Filipino town sign and what that means for the community. By the way, those of you that have been in the convoy, the Pan-Asian Cultural District here, Chris, when he was a council member, was going to help us get that sign for our community. It's the first Asian or Pan-Asian cultural sign here that we engaged everybody, all these different groups to be part of it. You look at the sign, there's all kinds of patterns and designs that represent multiple cultures. The first person I called after Chris had this vision and our organization had the vision too was Jessica, or then Jessica, now some member, Caloza, when she got the historic Filipino town sign in LA, and asked, what did it take to get that done? And I knew her from way back when, and it was so many steps to get there. And I know, Chris, you probably remember this, and how does that drive tourism? We were talking about the everything from the Olympics to like if you were to make an investment in a certain community and you felt comfortable being there, that drove so much more investment. How do you see that with the committee? I mean, talk to us about the committee. Tell us about the committee, one, but then two, where we could support, and what does that mean for the state of California in this, where we're getting into protectionism? What does it look like for trade and for us and diverse communities that make up so much of our economy?
Thank you, Jason, for the question. I'm proud to chair the California Asia Trade and Investment Select Committee. Proud to be appointed by Speaker Rivas. And really, this was a select committee that I wanted to champion because, one, we kind of see the state of international affairs that are going on right now and how countries like Asia and other continents are being talked about on the world stage. And the person with the mic, the biggest mic that everyone thinks about is currently the president. And right now, when we talk about California being the fourth largest economy in the world, and then we're not really always exercising our voice on the international stage, what does that really mean? And so for me, this select committee was really a chance for us to reclaim the mic and the narrative of, one, how do we really welcome immigrant communities to California, reclaim this space, and also look at California as a global leader in talking about trade, investment, tariffs, because what does a business in Asia have to do with a business in California? And the answer is actually a whole lot. We know that when we hear these tariffs that are being thrown around in the federal stage and by the government, increased tariffs of 45%, 85%, 15%, it's a roller coaster. But those aren't just numbers for a lot of our small businesses. For many of our immigrant-owned mom and pop shops who import goods from Asia, they actually are the ones paying the price tag of those tariffs. And so we not only need to have this conversation, but it's actually super vital because it is actually an affordability issue. This is an issue that we all, as consumers in our neighborhoods, actually pay the price for when we're going to our seafood city or our Latino-owned market or other Asian-owned market. We are paying the price for that. So these tariffs, it's not just this esoteric idea that doesn't impact us. It actually has a direct impact on our pocketbook. And so the select committee was really a chance to have this conversation with the assembly and ultimately come up with policy ideas and potential legislation to really look at how do we connect what's happening on the global stage make it relatable to what California can control, and more importantly, what impact does it have to our communities at the local level. And so proud to chair that work. We've had two really incredible convenings. One of our members and chair of the AAPI caucus, Assemblymember Mike Fong, is here, who also serves on the committee. And really what we see is a huge appetite for this work. We had Chris Kate also be at our first hearing at the Capitol. Jason also spoke at the last one that we had at Japan House. That means I guess you're speaking at the next one then. We have to complete this. We're not going to leave you out. But so I encourage everyone to engage with us in this work, because we really need to not only recontrol the narrative, but we really need to come up with better policy ideas of how the state can engage on these really important issues. And two, I do want to share some really good news that I received since you talked about housing a bit. Chris has actually got a bill signed right before I came here by the governor. He signed Assembly Bill 920, which is our Permit Streamlining Act. And so it's for large cities to actually create an online portal for people to be able to track your permits online. And so it's really about transparency, access to information. And for those of us who are in the housing industry and trying to tackle these issues, it's really about access to information so that we can reduce costs to build housing. And I share that because these are all interconnected things. And so, and the last point that I want to mention, because you talked about matching grants, Assembly Bill 265 is a matching grant program. So all the things that you talked about, they're already in my bill. So we just need to get it signed. Yes. So yeah. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Member. I know we're just about time, so I just want to thank our panelists. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Shaquille. Thank you, Assembly Member, for your diligent work here. Thank you all.